Welcome to the Co-Host Bros Podcast, where we break down everything short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, and building a profitable hospitality business. Whether you're a host, investor, or property manager, we share real strategies, real insights, and real experiences to help you scale smarter and grow faster. Let's dive in.
Yo, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome to episode 97. We should be the only podcast that's your obsession. My name is Matt Codd. I'm hanging out with Austin Spitzenberger, and today we have Cody Wood in the house, the Co-Host Bros podcast.
Pretty good. Good.
Right.
Good little intro right there. You're putting some hot sauce on the intros. I like it. I'm excited about our guest today. Cody, what's going on, my man?
Hey, Austin. Hey, Matt. Glad to join you guys today.
Yeah, dude. Super excited to have you here, man. Give us a quick background. Where are you based out of, and kind of how'd you get into the short-term rental space?
So I'm now based out of Little Rock, Arkansas. To kind of give you like the 20-second spiel, which usually turns into like 5 minutes, but we'll go through my transition. But basically, I started in Houston with my own house hacking my spare bedrooms. Basically partnered up with a guy, and we jumped into 75 properties really, really fast. And I realized he had one BA. This is back in 2021, so right after COVID. And I basically was transitioning out of engineering, and I was looking for something to do. I thought, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to do marketing with my original strategy, because my engineering career, the last few years, I was helping them market the products, tell them how to market the products. And the posts that I told them were going just off the chain. So I was like, well, maybe I have a knack for this. I don't know. And so I approached a guy, and it's like, hey, I think I could do your marketing. And then I started working with him and realized he had no operations, no systems, no processes. I said, oh, okay, well, I got to start here first, because we can't market trash. And so basically within about 8 months, we went from 75 to 156 properties. We made every mistake along the way. And then I actually started helping him remove properties from the portfolio. We dropped all the way back down to 60, making the exact same revenue as we were at 156. A lot less chaos, a lot less headache. But that's kind of how I got started in the industry. And then back in 2024, I launched this company. And we actually do fractional services. I have a business partner. Her name's Heba. We actually does my fractional CRO. So she actually comes in and helps with revenue management. And then I actually come in and help with fractional COO operations specific. So that's kind of the short and condensed version.
Yeah, and I think, Matt, I don't know, like, can you think back if we had somebody with more stellar beard on the podcast? I mean, it's I feel like he's top notch. He may get, out of 97 guests, he may get the best beard award. Thoughts? I don't know. What's your take on the beard?
I didn't know we were giving out awards, but I mean, I'm cool with that. I think that a lot of people, I think if they beat our beards, it's pretty good. I mean, I also say, as far as the intro, I did have to Google today what rhymed with 7, because I try to think some good ones. So I was going to say the only show we've never interviewed anybody named Kevin at first, but it's, and then I thought about it, like, we really never did interview anybody named Kevin. So, we'll give out the Beard Award and the Kevin Award at the same time, I guess.
There we go.
Nice. Yeah, so I love it, man. So you guys had your operation there. You went from 75. You almost, like what I like to call, pumpkin planned it, made it, managed less units and were more profitable. We went through a lot of that ourselves, and so it seems like the problem that you solve today as a fractional COO, what does that look like? So what does it look like?
Yeah.
How do you come into somebody's business, and like, who is the kind of person that you guys are like, hey, we can help you?
Yeah. So generally, when I walk into a company or a PMC, the first thing I look at is what's their org chart. Is the very first place I start. Most most of these operators, including myself back in the day, I had never sat down and actually mapped my org chart. I wish I had, because it would have made things a lot easier. And so I start there and I understand what hats everybody is wearing inside the company, because most of the time these are hobbyist hosts who started out and they've grown rapidly, just like I did. And what you don't realize is you really need to start defining positions in your company. One of the first positions that you should understand is like, who's the visionary and who's the integrator, because your integrator is going to be your one who's going to really help you drive the ship. And so a lot of operators in our space today don't have an integrator. And I realized that 2 years ago, and that's where I kind of started realizing that people need help. And since I'd already done it and I already knew exactly what systems generally worked as far as processes, not tech, you can interchange the tech all day long, but most companies will actually bend their company to the tech. And this is where I try to come in and say, okay, well, let's actually, how do you want your guests to experience your property management company? How do you want your owners to experience your property management company? How do you want your employees to experience coming to work every day for you? And we actually start mapping that out and looking like, okay, here's lanes for all of these different groups. And let's identify, like, maybe you've got a certain type of owner you really want to work with. Well, perfect. Let's define that. And then what does that journey look like for them? And, do you just want to take on anybody? I think we all do it first. We just take on anybody, and then we get more selective as we grow. The other side of this is hiring. Like, who do you hire? Do you hire W-2s, 1099s? Do you hire VAs? And when is that acceptable? Because most people at 20 properties, they're feeling the stress. They're starting to wonder about a VA. They could probably do with one VA to help them on the back end admin. And most of the time, they're bouncing between having the W-2 and going full time. At the same time, I also will say is like, you don't need 20 properties to go full time. I'm sure you both know that, but usually I find about 20 properties is where people kind of start really playing with the idea of like, hey, I could do this for a living. But that's kind of where I start. And then usually we start mapping quickly, like, what's their tech? What is the tech doing for them? And I think this is a real issue in our industry right now, tech bloat. I think almost every operator I've worked with at this point has so many fractured pieces of tech. Most of it overlaps with one another. They don't have one true system that actually sits down and actually follows the system all the way through. It's like, okay, you have a PMS and you want that PMS to do, 80% of the work for you, but instead you've added on a vendor management system. You've added on a CRM. You've added on all these extra pieces, and that's great. And some of the times you do need that depending on the PMS you've chosen. But then there's times where you've added on so much tech, you actually don't need it. And so now I'm trying to show operators, hey, here's the KPIs you need to be tracking at each size of your business. I'm trying to show operators like, hey, this is what your team needs to be tracking as KPIs for each role. Nobody really thinks about it that way. They think, oh, we're just looking at the overall business. But in truth, you need to actually narrow it down. If you got a VA, for example, who's your operations, VA, maybe does communications, they should have 3 to 5 KPIs that they're tracking on a daily basis, and they maybe report that up once a week to you. That's the other thing too, is I find we have a lot of meetings, one-on-ones a lot of times with the teams, and I get that, but at the same time, that if the meeting doesn't have a purpose, it's not answering a question, solving a problem, or giving you an update, don't have it.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, man. So one thing that comes to my mind is like, so with you and your engineering background and based on your history and kind of what you do in the space now, I'm leaning towards assuming that you're more of an integrator. Am I
Yeah,
correct on that?
that's right.
Yeah, that's like the superpower there. Like at Lazy H, we have a very, very heavy visionary deal, and then we have less integrators. So it's like I'm always thinking going forward, like, hey, the next hire, like visionary wise, like we're set. Like we have too much going on over here that we need somebody like that on the back end that can make everything go.
Right.
So that makes sense. What's also interesting to me is like how you approach these situations, and you're like, well, oftentimes I was thinking going into this, as you're the operations guy, that you would be pushing people to have more tech, to be more organized, to have more systems. But you're also saying like the opposite of that is like, hey, a lot of the time people are tech bloated. That's what you're saying, and they have
Yep,
too much. So you're saying that they have too much tech that they're not utilizing.
that's right.
They're using too many softwares, right?
Yeah, because you got to think about this too for your team, right? So this is one of my first trainings I usually teach because I have a VA hiring system, and I had somebody recently say like, "Oh, will you hire the VA and train them for me?" And I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "I will show you the system, but you have to customize the system to your company." Because even if you go to a VA agency, and not to pick on them, but they still have to be trained within your company. So even when you hire from a VA agency and you bring that VA in, well, guess what? They don't know your systems and processes. You may be using similar tech, but you may have a completely different methodology of how you use that tech and what you're doing and checklist and other things you're doing in there that other clients that they have maybe used that same software don't do those things. And so when I show people like, hey, you can do this, but at the same time, like you really need to have a training program for every role in your company. And not only do you need to have a training program, you need to actually sit there and think about this from the tech side too. Like if you have 15 pieces of tech, think about that employee sitting there on the other side of the screen. Like I'm having to click between your PMS, your vendor management system, your communication systems, your phone system, and nothing is communicating into one source. And so then you add in the softwares like Monday and Notion and Slack and Trello and all of these other things that you're tracking in different places. You've just created an operational nightmare on your back end.
Yeah, that's probably true. I notice a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, I have this and I have that and I have this and I have that," and it's a little challenging. And I like what you said about the VAs too. Like, you're just wasting your money, I guess, just going through a hiring service, right? You're paying extra for one, for two. They're not trained. They may have experience, but experience doesn't mean anything if you can't train somebody properly. So what's the purpose of the experience, right?
Right.
So uh if somebody were to like contact you and get with your company or get some kind of like guidance or whatnot, at what level operator would they need to be, or what level operator do you think they should be to start thinking about those kinds of things?
Generally, I say that you should be around 20 properties, realistically. The reason why I settled on 20, I used to do smaller operators, but I ran into a really big issue of those operators trying to treat me like their virtual assistant. And the lesson learned there was even though I can do the virtual assistant stuff, which is not hard, it's just not actually value driven because if I'm in there fixing your templated messaging, for example, that's not really a good use of my time, even though I can do it and show you exactly how to do it. I would rather the operator who actually is the visionary, like, what is your custom messaging? I'll give you the templates, but then like customize it to your business. Don't just, take it, from a template, actually customize it to yourself. But then at the same time, like the reason why we went to 20 was because we realized that at 20 is really that really defining moment, Matt, where you're almost ready to step out of your W 2, or you already are in transition, but you're not sure how to get to 30 or 40 properties. Because I also have realized that it's about every 40 properties, you hit a new level in this business. So at 40, at 80, at 100, 120, somewhere in there, you really hit whole new levels of issues, whole new level of structure that you need in your business, whole new level of really like oversight from regulations that you need to be thinking about. Um, you know, Co-hosting is great to start with, but then once you hit 80, you should be thinking. I think my camera just went and disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
um, but you should be thinking about like what does that regulatory look like at the end of the day. Let me see what happened with my
Yeah,
camera there, guys. Sorry about that.
that's okay. So I know you're used to dealing with like bigger operators and things like that, and we do have people that listen to this show that are bigger operators, but we have a lot of people that listen to the show that are smaller operators. What just if there's people here just like starting out, like what would you suggest that they do? Like what would you think that would probably, like if you were just starting out today, like what would you do to get started?
If I was starting out today, I actually had this conversation recently with somebody who's just starting out. I would tell you to start mapping, and I know that sounds really hard, but it's really not, is map your business and understand why or what the experience is you want for your owners to experience. Why would they choose you over another property management company? And then I would also challenge you to ask the question of like, well, not only that, but then what is it that you're bringing to the table for a guest that you want to give them that experience? And so I'll kind of, Austin, I'll point at Lazy H because Scriven was one of the first ones that I really saw doing this like extra well for the owners. Like that owner letter that he was sending out. I don't know if you guys are still doing it, but that was fantastic. Like he gave them like this whole like timeline of what he wanted the owners to experience. And I think that's a big reason why y'all had such success with that luxury industry, part of the industry, because it was very high touch, but you kept the owner informed at every step. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that we're always trying to not let go of with scale, right? Like it's also like in the beginning stages, it's a lot easier to have that personal touch, be customizable, be able to do this and know how to react to certain people. But I guess it's tougher when at scale, right? Whenever you're adding more units and that owner touch point, keeping that boutique feel to it is always something that's important to us, and we want to make sure that we keep that. But you can see how at scale that those things start to trying to keep that together as we continue to add more properties is tough.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing too, is like a lot of these high touch points that a lot of people in our industry bring up. They sound great, but when you get to scale, it does get harder. But there are options that you can now use. Like, um, I know one of the big things was recording a video yourself and telling somebody, "Welcome to your property." That was a big lead in for a lot of people. Like, oh man, that's so cool. It's so unique. Well, now with the invention of AI and cloning yourself and cloning your voice, you could literally just have a VA go in there, fire it up real quick, and then send it through your CRM. Now it's scalable.
Do you have people that do that, or have you seen people doing that?
I have seen a few try, but they couldn't get their clone correct. Um, and so I think with the way AI is advancing now, it's getting closer and closer to where you could do that because you think about that and you get to the point to where like FIFA is coming to Houston. And Matt, I know you're in Houston, so a perfect example would be like imagine having a Matt clone who basically speaks their language and says, "Hey, welcome to my property. Who you here rooting for? Hope to see you out there, whatever." And it like translates perfectly. Still has your voice, and even though you may not speak, whatever that language is, it's like, dude, that's perfect. That's
Dude, we
exactly
have
what.
so much data too, Austin. We have so much like audio and video clips of us that we could probably do this. If anybody in our audience knows how to do that, you probably want to hit us up. I mean, I could probably do it. I just don't want to figure it out. Um, but I mean, we have enough. I mean, personally, between you and I, we have enough audio and video clips to probably say and do anything. We could
Yep.
do advertisements for cotton balls next week. And you wouldn't even
Yeah.
know it, So
Yeah.
I was going
No,
to
it's
say
it's
something
super
else.
powerful, super powerful. But think about this too. Think about like if you, and this is something that I think is really interesting. Is like you think about doing that for the guest, right? What if you did that for your vendors? Like, hey, I see that we are onboarding you as a new vendor. I wanted to welcome you to the team. We love having your partnership and just the experience that gives your new vendor. Like, wow, you know, no other PMC is doing these things. Or what about your new employee? Sending them a welcome video. And it's super simple, but you record it once and you talk about the company policies and you walk them through that. And it's really simple and you only do it once, and then only if you need to update it do you update it. But it's like it's these little things, these little touch points where they get to know you, they get to hear your voice, they get to see your mannerisms, they get to see your face, and they get to experience like, oh man, I really enjoy working with Matt. He's just so chill. Or man, Austin, he's got a lot of high energy. He brings a lot of that to the conversation. I know when I'm on a call with him, he's going to be asking me a lot of questions. Whatever that is, you really can curate that now for your team.
Yeah. AI is wild. You can do so much stuff. Like,
Oh yeah.
Just, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we're in the beginning phases of it. Like, I mean, obviously it was over the last 2, 3 years. Now everyone's using it, replace their Safari, their Google search engine with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. Curious, not to put you on the spot, but curious as to like, what do you think? How do you think AI will kind of affect our industry, or it already has in a way? Um, what do you think
Well, I'll
that?
I'll give y'all some insight then, because you're gonna love this. I actually just got hired by a new client, and they have 500 doors, and I'm actually linking all of their data behind the scenes of all their different systems. So remember that tech bloat, so I can give them and deliver them some AI agents and some actual dashboards. The AI agents will actually pull from to give them actual EOS reports to the CEO, the GM, sales. And so now they'll actually be able to not change any of their tech, but they're just going to be using that tech, as they've been using it so far. And then they're going to be pulling dashboards where this data wasn't interconnected before. So I think what's going to happen in the future, I don't think it's going to happen, is you're going to see that the PMSs are going to become your channel managers, really. And that's all they're going to be used for. You're going to interact with your software completely different, because there's going to be people who are going to take what I'm saying and run with it and create businesses who are going to come in there and say, like, we can make it easy and simple and their UI is horrible. I've done a lot of PMS switches over the years, and I will tell you, every PMS switch I've done, I've hated to some degree. I think it is the bane of our existence in this space, because extracting your data from one PMS to another. But imagine if you had, one guy with a bunch of AI agents who came in there, cleaned your data, uploaded it, got you live on another PMS within 24 hours. Like, that's unheard of in our industry, because most of the time it takes us at minimum, 14 days on a good day. But, at worst, it can take up to 6 months. I've talked to many people who were like, yeah, I try to onboard with those guys and it's been 6 months. And I'm like, eesh, probably should stop.
Yeah, it's rough. I'm never switching. I don't care I don't care what I need. I'm not switching. I don't care. Figure it out. I'll have ChatGPT help me write a Google script and use Airtable and figure it out or something.
Yeah.
It's.
Well, and I think even too with like your point there with Airtable, like there's a lot of people that are relying on Airtable, but how did that affect you, Matt, when Airtable went down? Was it last week or earlier this week?
I haven't had any issues. I didn't even notice. I only use it for a few things. So I have a couple properties where statements have to be generated a certain way. Like, I use trust accounting, but then I have a couple co-host properties I got to generate. So like, I have a script in Google Sheets that basically, like, any kind of reservation data that's not Airbnb pulls into the report. And then I basically just select the month, select the owner, and it generates the statement. And then it emails me the statement and I send it to the owner, and done. Like things like that. And then I also use it to pull reservation data just to update contact information. So I pull reservation data, and then when they go and sign their agreement on Happy Guest, the CRM will kick that to me, and then it will re-upload. Like, it will put the correct email, correct phone number, and then I'll use it to automatically email them for Google reviews. And that was just something that we've had a couple episodes where we were talking about getting Google reviews and things like that. So I recently set up a Zap to where it's like, if 5 stars, roll in, send this email and paste your review in here with a Google link and things like that. So that's pretty much just what I use it for in general. Just like for the little automations, really just somewhere to store the data. Honestly, I don't do like crazy AI bot stuff yet.
You'll get there.
Maybe
It doesn't
soon.
take long.
Maybe soon.
Yeah.
I see your wheels turning, Austin.
No, I'm just trying to like I'm not trying to be like doom and gloom here. I'm just trying to be realistic, like from like a property management perspective, like is it realistic that AI could replace vacation rental managers? Probably not, right? Because you still have so many
I don't
touch
think so.
points with vendors and there's so much communication that takes place. Like it may
Well,
simplify it. They may get
you,
really good to the they may make it like they may get really good to where self-managing is very, very easy if you have like one or two properties. But at the end of the day, I don't know, you still have to, it's still a people business and you still have to, yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
well, yeah, I mean, so the first thing I will say about AI is that if you just add AI to your business today without understanding your systems and process, I mean, this is the whole foundation that I preach to everybody. It's like you can go out there and you can install AI today. You can install HostBuddy super quick and super easy, for example. And not to pick on them, but but if you don't have good systems and good processes already established, you're going to be you're basically putting a layer of AI with no real information. You have to treat AI as an employee. And so that's like throwing a VA in there that knows nothing about your business other than just a few message threads, things like this. It will work for sure. It won't work great like it could. But if you actually took the time and you actually developed your systems and your processes, that foundational layer, then when you add in AI, it already knows the decision points. And the benefit of AI, it's never going to replace the human element, but what it's going to do is it's going to allow the $2 tasks to the $10 tasks to come to really quick decisions based on your rule sets or your policies. And then when it needs to escalate to a human decision maker, it can. And your human decision makers are now working on bigger projects. I don't think that, like, for example, I know a lot of people are worried that VAs are going to go away. I'm like, I don't think they will. I think they're going to evolve because they're going to
Yep.
have to. They're going to become your project managers. You're part of your sales team. They're going to become part of your tech troubleshooting where they're querying the AI and helping link things together. That's where they're going to evolve to. The idea that property managers are going to go to the wayside is just not true. I mean, there was a report that came out that there's only like 2,700 property management companies across the US that have more than 100 properties, which is wild to me to think about. But there's like over 80,000 PMCs across the US. It's like that is such a small portion of our industry that have more than 100 properties. And there's probably going to be some roll ups and combinations. I've seen a lot in the last year where people have been conjoining, and that's great. And you make a bigger company and you build bigger processes, better systems together. Well, then eventually what it's going to do is it's going to allow like this private equity that's coming into our space, right? Well, they're going to force everybody to one type of tech. And I know there's a lot of roll up conversations out there. And I don't care who you are, at some point they're going to force you all to the same tech. We're watching that real time right now with Casago and Vacasa. All those franchisees are having to move to Guesty. So, this is all happening right in front of us. So you're kind of getting a taste of what's going to happen with private equity in our space right now. And I don't think AI is something to be feared, but I do think if you're not messing with AI right now and implementing it in your business, you need to start at your foundation and make sure your systems and processes are solid or how you want them to run, and then add in the AI element. Because at the end of the day, you're still going to need a human decision maker. Because when your bookkeeper gets that comment like, hey, what do I need to do with this one? Well, AI can sort it to some degree, but you're still going to want that bookkeeper to go in there and make sure it's categorized correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right with the VAs evolving. I think a lot of the AI like just basically helped us take the messaging to the next level and deal with a lot of like low level problems, right? Like you were saying about Host Buddy, and Host Buddy works, if you feed it information, and that's why you need a human, I think, to feed information. And by the way, guys, if you want to try Host Buddy, just use the code co-host bros. You get a free month for free. So I appreciate you for bringing that up. But yeah, I mean, with AI, I mean, like, I think AI involved the VA's position in Austin's business, I believe, at one point. And, it's just, a different game, right? Because now you're paying somebody $5-6 an hour to do something that's a higher level, or figure something else out, or and they're going to learn more skills from that too. So eventually it's going to be better for them as well. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting time. I think. I don't think it'll mess up property managers. I think it may make less vacation rentals. I mean, people might, lose their jobs because of it and not be able to afford that second home or whatnot. But I don't know if it'll change what we do.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like there's so many variables in our industry that I don't think people realize affect us. Like politics affects us, uh, economy affects us, global travel affects us. I mean, we get touched by so many different things, but then at the same time, domestic travel affects us even. Um, and you start adding all these different variables to every single equation, and this is the one part that a pro forma just can't predict. Like you can look at the numbers all day long, but you can't predict humans. I mean, we're emotional creatures, as much as we try. And I mean, it's the same with our messaging. Like, and that's where the AI has to be trained on like how do you solve and when do you escalate to a human? Because again, the less messages you can send in your reservations, the better I say your operations are running. Because if you start thinking about this, your operations should be so smooth, they're basically invisible. And so, hence my name, Get the Ghost Hosts, because you're really wanting your operations to be just humming. And what that looks like is like, okay, Matt, if you're sending 50 messages per reservation, but Austin, you're only sending 5, who's got the better guest experience? But, it's like, is it Austin or is it Matt? Well, Matt's very high touch, but Austin isn't. So which one did the guests enjoy more? Well, the guest had all this stuff answered prior, so he didn't have to ask as much questions to Austin. But Matt, maybe your guests are waiting for your message templates to fire off. So, it's just looking at it a little bit differently. Like, well, how do you reduce your messaging to where the guest has all that up front? Be proactive. And so one of the things I do teach with all my clients is how do we get proactive with your guest messaging? How do we get proactive with your cleaners? How do we get proactive with your maintenance? Where you're doing maintenance on once a month versus having to go in there and fix things after every guest. You're saving costs there, but at the same time, you're maintaining the property at a high level. So
Yeah, so when you come in, like somebody hires you, you're going to serve as their fractional COO. What does this relationship look like? I guess first of all, that's my question. Like, are you in there to clean things up for a quarter, and I'm going to help you out and move on? Is that your kind of service? Or are you more like I'm actually a fractional employee in your business for the long run, and we're an ongoing service that's going to work and build and your operations over time. So that's my first question is like what kind of like what is your relationship work with operators? Because I really think this whole fractional model and method is really cool. Like we hired a fractional CMO. We're in the beginning phases of it. They're figuring us out. They're learning this, that, and the other. So it's all this upfront legwork. We're using a lot of AI to transport our messages between each other so they can get a good game plan for us together. And we're super excited about it. But it's like we also don't have to pay a we don't have to pay a CMO. Like we don't have to bring someone in,
yeah,
pay him a C-suite level salary of $200,000 and benefits and this. So that's where the advantage of is like, hey, you don't need somebody maybe full time to do this. You have a fractional guy like Cody that comes in and does that. So I guess my question is what's that owner relationship kind of look like when working with you?
yeah, it depends. I will do 90-day sprints with my clients to start with, anyways. And then what I do is then we reduce the hours afterwards because I've done the bulk of the work with their team in the first 90 days. And so that way it does become truly a fractional service to them where they don't have to have me as many hours as they had. So we actually break it down. So generally, when a fractional employee comes in, you don't have them working 40 hours a week. You have them for like 10 to 20 hours a week, maybe. Otherwise, you're paying $10,000 to $15,000 for this role a month, and most operators just can't afford that. And so, but this is where the beauty of it is because it's, broken down in a much smaller portion. That when the fractional comes in and works with your company, they're very specific. They're looking specifically at certain things in your business. They're looking for certain KPIs. They're looking for certain items, and they actually embed themselves in your company. Not, like a consultant who kind of tells you strategy, but won't actually get their hands dirty. A fractional moves in, kind of like what you're probably seeing with their CMO. They're literally pulling the data out. They're refining that. They're telling you the posts you need to do. And they're showing you like, okay, here's how we're going to move forward. Here's the strategy. And here's how we're going to execute it with the current technology.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love this concept. And so when you're looking at that, you're just doing a deep dive on their business, like your 90-day sprint, you said. So you're going in there, you're looking at a deep dive on their business. You're looking at how everything on the back end operationally is run, and you're pointing out inefficiencies within there. And you're like, hey, dude, like you need to change this. And I don't care who you are, like it is so valuable to have a second set of eyes on something like that. Even if you think you're the GOAT at operations, you're probably not. And you could probably come in and teach someone and say, hey, like I would check this, change this, change this. So is that kind of what you guys are doing? I was like, you come in, you look at how everything's run from like guest messaging to everything. So like, I guess my question is you come in and you look at everything operationally, or what's that like?
Yeah. So basically, I look at every piece of their operation. So whether it's, you know, I don't like to say this, but I do feel like a lot of people see me as their CFO at times, which I'm not. But I have to look at their finances because I believe that you have to create a operational moat around your business to actually cut your cost. Because if your operations are running efficiently, then you're going to make more revenue for not only the PMC but also for the clients. And at the end of the day, that's who we're serving is the homeowners, right? And if they make more money, they're happy with you. They're going to keep staying with you. At the same time, when the industry changes and things get tight and you already know your numbers, well, now this can affect your pricing strategy. This can affect your employee count. Maybe you have to flip from a W-2 to a 1099, or, you have a strategy there. Or, maybe you decide, all right, you know what, I'm going to bring all cleaning in-house because the numbers make sense, because you know your numbers and you know operationally how you're going to attack this. And that's a lot of the conversations I have with a lot of my clients. I sit in with their accountants, their bookkeepers, and I actually look at their numbers and I actually go through with them and I look for areas that we can cut the bills. Some clients, I've had to tell them, hey, you got to get out of these masterminds. I know you think they're bringing you value, but when you're paying 60 grand a year on a mastermind and you're not growing or you're still operationally challenged where you just can't afford this, you can join it later if you really love it. But there has to be a financial decision point where you're looking at operations, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's training. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good, but when we're barely covering each month, we have to make that judgment call together. And not everybody likes to hear me say that, but I'm like, there's other options, to learn. And if you really feel like you need to get around people, there's usually local groups in most cities that you can get a part of. Not every group is in every city, but at that point, I would tell you, start a group. It's just as easy to start a group like in Houston. Matt, I know you restarted a group there in Houston, and it's much more effective because now you're also getting out in the public. People know you. It's easier to grow your company, and it's very little cost to you to do. It's just some legwork. And it's just little things like that, Austin, that I would say that are so valuable from a fractional perspective, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, are you going to be full time with me? No, that's not how this works, because you don't want to pay that bill. I mean, unless you want to, I'm happy if you want to. I'm not going to turn it down, but at the same time, I'm also going to be real with my clients and tell them like, hey, this is not working. If they've got employees, I dabble in the HR stuff too, because like, again, you can't run operations without touching all of these aspects, from HR to hiring to people problems within your company to troubled clients. Like, I advise my clients when they have problem clients, like, hey, what do we need to do? I show them how to evaluate their current portfolio. This is something that most people don't think about. You should be evaluating your portfolio every quarter. Do you like working with all your clients? Are all your clients profitable with you? Are you losing money with any of these properties? And do you need to pivot? These are all conversations you should be having, but this is where a fractional COO such as myself, we come in and we're going to actually have that real conversation with you, and we're not going to sugarcoat it because we're not emotionally attached to any of these relationships like you are, but that's also what blinds you and keeps you in the situation that you are in where you're complaining, oh man, I got this one client, they're a real problem. Oh man, I don't know how to handle this client because they're difficult. Well, when I come in, it's going to be, hey, well, here's the conversation. Here's how we change that. We're going to pull the data. All right. What's their last 3 owner statements look like? Okay. The owner statements are pretty rough. We're going to look at, are they texting you on WhatsApp all the time? Why are they not messaging the team? Okay. There's not a system in place. So now we start realizing like, here's where things are falling apart or broke, or basically you bypassed your own system you established, and we need to go back and figure out why that happened.
Yeah, I like the frac. I think you solve a really really important problem. All these fractional positions, because there's that size where it's like you can't pay them the price of two, multiple 6-figure salary, benefits, all that, and it's not affordable. But also you don't need that much. You do, like you said, you need 10-20 hours a week to move the needle um significantly. So I think, yeah, there's so much value in just having somebody that's fractional, and also like there's a certain size in your business like we're at now where it's like, from like a marketing perspective, right? Like you can get to 20 listings through word of mouth, but that expires at some point. Like the word of mouth leads will get you maybe one, maybe two a month, but then you get to a point where like, hey, one a month is like slow growth. So like that works in the beginning phases, but okay, now like we got to send out mailers. Like we have to be skip tracing and cold calling people. We've got to do meta ads. We got to do Google ads. We got to do something, because what got us to 60 properties is not going to get us to 120. Maybe it'll get us to 120, but do we want to get to 120 in 15 years? Because that's the rate we're going at. So having somebody that's a fractional component, I'm just speaking from the marketing perspective because that's kind of my area. That's what I focus on. So I'm working with the fractional CMO, but it's like he's telling us all this stuff that we never would have thought about, like SEO, and this is what's all messed up with your website. This is what we need to do. I'm like, dude, I would never have done any of this. And he's like, just this is low hanging fruit. Like we need to knock these things out. And it's costs money, but we'll see. I'm sure the ROI is there, but I definitely see like the need for someone like you to come in and do that. But one question, I guess, that comes, unless you had anything on that.
No, that's good stuff, and do understand that fractional C-level executives are different than consultants. I think that's the one thing I do want to get across, because there's a lot of people who are putting fractional in their name and they're really just consultants. A consultant is really just going to tell you, oh, here's some templates, here's high level strategy. They're not going to necessarily help you implement. They may coach and train a little bit, but they're not going to get involved in your business. With a fractional executive, we plug in, we understand what's happening, and we start tailoring the solution to your business. It's not something where, we just come in and say, you're going to do this tech, you're going to do this system. It's, hey, we're seeing how your business is working, and we're going to build this for your business.
And in all fairness, like the reason why I would trust somebody like that too is because you have your hands in multiple businesses. So the reality of it is like you've seen behind the curtain what works over there. And every market's different, right? But there's a lot of parallels between how they run their company and how we run Lazy H and how Matt runs his. And you can be like, hey, I've seen how Matt does this. He does it really well. I need to go and like make sure all my clients are doing that, without giving away all of his secret intel. But because you work with a lot of operators, you're able to see what strategies within operations work and what don't, right?
That's right. That's right. And that's where I see the most value too, because you get somebody who is basically trained in multiple markets now. They see what's working and what's not. And sometimes, even that marketing comment where it works in certain markets and not others, Austin, that point right there, sometimes it's not even been tried in the market that you're in, and they're able to bring you an idea that you never would have considered. Most people will tell you need to bring cleaning in house. I have had bigger operators with 200 doors who tell me, no, I'm going back to 1099. The headache of having internal cleaners is just not worth it. And it's like, isn't that interesting? 5 years ago, it was all about bring everything in house. We did that in Houston, and oh man, that was rough. But I learned a lot about the cleaning side of the business. And the one thing I would tell you is like 1099s are great because you can literally split them, between your properties, and it's just so convenient. But at the same time, like a lot of people tell you, well, you got to train all of them. Sure, but you could also filter that out when you're first interviewing a lot of these vendors. And it's the same thing for handyman, HVAC, electric, all of these guys. They're you're looking for certain things, but it could also be your policy changes. Hey, I don't work with you unless you're licensed and bonded. It's a simple change, but guess what? That means that their company is real and established and not a fly-by-night company. And you're not just letting anybody into your property. And it's just little changes like that. You start thinking about, like, how do I get proactive? Like when people bring up a lot of issues, I see in a lot of the different Facebook groups or whatever, 9 times out of 10, the reason they're having those issues is that upstream, they never address that. And if they would have addressed that when they first had the first conversation, they would never experience probably 80% of the issues they encounter.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I didn't even think about something like that. So let's say we're at the 60 range. You're tossing around the idea of cleaning in house, but maybe it doesn't make sense geographically. Like, is that something you would come in and you would do like an analysis, or maybe that's not your area, but I'm just thinking that is operational. So like, would you look at their business and be like, hey, dude, like for your market and how geographically close you are, you're leaving a lot of money on the table by not bringing cleaning in house. Are you able to provide that level of consulting, or be like, hey, dude, avoid it if I were you? Like you do a deep
Well,
dive on
not
that because that's a
consulting, but
tough
I'll bring in
problem
the
to solve.
fractional COO viewpoint, and I'll actually look at their numbers and say, does it make sense? Because, in essence, you're creating a separate business underneath your PMC. And you need to understand, like, when you create a different business like a cleaning company, you need to realize, like, there's got to be structure there too. So not just are you dealing with your PMC, you also have to have a cleaning manager. You've got to have cleaners. Are you going to provide vehicles? Are you prepared to have all the insurance you need and the licenses that you need potentially for the state? Are you aware that, if you have people working for you and they're driving the vehicles, whether they're 1099s or not, as a PMC, you are liable. So if they get in a car wreck, it's not necessarily them that's going to come after you. It's their insurance company because they were on a job for your company. So do you have the proper insurance for your PMC? That's all these little different nuances and regulatory that you need to be thinking about when you start approaching these type of solutions.
Yeah, it's a complicated one, man, because we're looking at that, but I don't want to get too much in the weeds. But I also listen to Brooke Fout's podcast a lot, the top 10 mistakes that like vacation rental managers make. And it's like always on there, like in one way, shape, or form, almost like I would almost say at least 40% of the episodes I've listened to, they mentioned bringing the bringing cleaning in house and bringing like laundry in house. Like they wish they would have done that earlier, but I think that doesn't tell the whole story because maybe some people it didn't work for, and I don't know.
Well, it depends on location, right? Because, for example,
Yeah,
Matt in Houston and all his units are closely clustered together, it probably makes sense. For you out there in Wimberley and that area, it's pretty rural. That'd be pretty tough. So you're telling me you're going to make all your cleaners who are already driving 30 minutes between their properties to pull the laundry out and take it to a laundry service that you're got centrally located somewhere between all those areas? That's going to be very logistically tough. That means you're going to have micro laundromats, New Braunfels, micro laundromat, Wimberley, Canyon Lake, all of those areas for yourself. And that's going to be really logistically challenging. Or you're going to have one central location. You're going to have runners who are running between all the properties to pick up laundry while your cleaners just focus on that property to clean. Because now you're going to have to say, okay, well then I'm going to bring my cleaners in house. Well, now you got to provide supplies. Do you know the best way to clean these different places? Are you training them consistently on how to clean better, clean faster? Did they know that they can use water and vinegar and get pretty much 80% of stuff clean because it's a natural disinfectant? It's just little tricks that you're going to learn. And, Kaboom and vinegar, if you put them together, it removes any sticky surface off of anything. And it's just like, these little nuances that you have to learn. And if you don't know that, you have to have somebody knowledgeable on your team who can train them. And then at the same time, you got to have a growth program for these cleaners, because if you're not training them and helping them grow, they're going to leave you.
Yeah. It's a tough one, man. That's a tough one for sure. But I don't know, man. We'll just figure it out. We'll just keep going, and we'll see how that plays out. The fact that you named New Braunfels, Canyon Lake, Wimberley, like you must be from. I figured you must have spent some time in Texas, that you knew all those markets, that those micro markets that we're in, and you understand this, how our market's different. Where it could exactly, we could have a turn that's an hour and 20 minutes away in a different micro town within the Texas Hill Country, because there it's just so spread out like that.
Yeah. So funny story for you. I don't know if you want to add this to the podcast or not, but if you do,
Good.
it'll be fun. My wife decided to take us to Perennial Falls there, uh, on the hottest day in Texas. And I remember basically carrying my daughter, who was like 8 or 9 months old, on my shoulders, because I was like, "Dad, gum, it's hot." And we were sitting there camping in an old fashioned tent. And I'm like, this was a terrible idea. But the wife wanted to do it, so we did it. And of course, then she stayed in the tent where I had a portable AC unit while I was sitting out there cooking for us. I was just like, "Yeah, it's a different experience in Texas. Different kind of heat."
I love that. Yeah, it can be brutal, man, for sure. But I wanted to see, like, okay, so let's give our audience maybe some game, that maybe they're 10, 20 units, whatever the case may be, but let's take it back to like the earlier phases. Or whatever, but what is one common thing whenever you see, when you go into someone's business, what's one common thing that you see that operators have that maybe they could do immediately today to go put in change in their business, that you've seen that a lot of people do incorrectly? Is there any, like, one mistake come to mind, low hanging fruit, where they could be like, hey, if I did this after listening to the Co-Host Bros podcast, implement it, it would make my business better?
One thing, there's so many things. It's hard to pick one, but
Or go, if you got a couple, go with a couple. If you've got a couple, I was trying to make it
yeah,
easier, because I don't
I'll
like when
I'll
people
give
ask
you.
me name three things. I'm like, oh, I don't have
Yeah,
three. I got one.
yeah. I got a good example of a guy that I worked with last year. Um, he was dabbling with STR, but he was trying to do more midterm rentals out in Virginia. And one of the problems he was dealing with is he could not scale. He still had his W-2. He had about 27 units. Um, and one of the things that I told him to do that was going to make his life a lot easier, because he had never hired VAs before. It was only him and his wife running the business. She ran the cleaning side. He ran the day to day as much as he could. But when he was at his W-2, he had basically been vanished. So when I worked with him, the thing that I did was we ended up hiring two VAs, and we also did walkthrough videos. I know that sounds so like archaic, but the walkthrough videos alone allowed him to be able to share this with potential new clients and realtors who were looking to place people. It allowed his VAs to learn the properties, and he could actually explain like nuances with the property. His questions from his tenants almost vanished overnight, because they didn't have questions from him, because the videos were already there answering the questions that they had. Um, the other side is I also taught him how to use an app called Kubicasa. If you're not familiar with it, you need to learn it. It is a sweet little app that you can make a 3D model of your property. And I gave him a little SOP of how to run through there in about 10 minutes and build it. It's like $80 to get the 3D model. Otherwise, you can get the free 2D model. Still great to have and use on your different listing platforms. And the other thing was adding two VAs. When he added two VAs in November, by December, he had onboarded 5 new properties. It allowed him to grow faster. And so if you're worried about VAs, if you hire the right VAs in the right position, it should allow you to move faster. And so he was actually excited and told me at the end of our contract, I can't wait to grow this business now. I'm so excited. He actually told me he was thinking about selling when we first started. And by the end of it, he was pumped and was ready to keep going. And he saw this as lifelong revenue for his family, Whereas before he was like, I'm not sure it's worth it. But the thing that he was lacking was systems and processes. And as soon as we put those in there together, and his VAs, I showed them how to create more SOPs and processes. They were building documentation for him, how to do things, how to use his systems, how to use his tech for his business. It made it to where he was so confident he brought on 5 properties within 3 weeks. Now, most people are like, well, how do you onboard properties that fast? Well, I'm going to give y'all all a really cool secret. Take your phone, put it on voice record, walk a property talking to that voice recording, then upload it to a software that is free for everybody if you have a Gmail, Notebook LM. And Notebook LM can be your SOP for training your team on that property. You can type in part numbers and serial numbers as you're talking to it. And then basically Notebook LM, when you put it all together, you can actually go out and say, find this operating manual for this appliance, this stove. So that way, when they get a code error, guess what? Now your VAs can go to Notebook LM, pull it in, and now you've got troubleshooting done.
Yeah.
It's solid.
No, that's awesome. I love that, man. I like the fact that you came in and you were able to change someone's business, do something to where you literally changed the person's life because they were like, I'm going to sell this. But because I was operationally lacking, you were able to come in and save their business. And I mean, you changed their life. And I feel like we see that all the time with a lot of legacy managers that are managing properties. Like one we just onboarded, I mean, it should do around 75K gross revenue, and it was doing 24. And it was like all they wanted to do was pay their taxes. The house was owned outright. And it was just such a good feeling of like, dude, we came in, just got new pictures, better operations, just was able to plug and play. And it's like, hey, like we're the difference from this person wanting to sell their vacation home and keeping it. Like, isn't that's
Right.
crazy? Like when you do that, you have to be satisfied at the end of the day of like, hey, like this guy's still in business and was going to quit, but because of me and my help and my assistance, I was able to prevent him from doing that. So I don't know, man, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
By the way, Austin, you have one of my former VAs in your business.
Yeah, don't announce his name on here because he is a savage, and I don't want anyone to poach him because I don't know. Maybe he worked out all the kinks with you. That dude is like my. I just had a call with him before this, and that dude is, dude. That guy. We are like Jordan and Pippen, man. Because I am so visionary, and I cannot do the integrator stuff. I know my weaknesses. I'm not wired like you. Like I know what to do, but he's the guy that can make it happen. Like he can just figure stuff out. He's so good, dude. That guy's smart. So I'm glad whatever happened, it didn't work out.
He was he was our team lead in Houston for many years, and spent a lot of time learning a lot of different areas. And dude was solid. And I hate that we had to give him up, but I was so happy when I was able to connect him with y'all. Like I knew that it was a good home for him.
Yeah, I'll send him this bit. I think he listens to the podcast, honestly, but I'll send him this bit and he'll love it.
Well, if he does listen to the podcast, if you don't leave us a review, I'm going to tell him to fire you. No. I spent too much time in the corporate world, so I was going the other direction. You know, you were like, "Oh, he's great." I was thinking like, "Oh, fire him." Yeah. So
I need like 3 more. If I need like 3 more of him, I would like 3 more of that guy.
With AI, you could probably get 2.5. We just went over this.
No, I
That's
won't.
true.
So are you? I mean, we're running out of time here, but do you even manage properties in Houston anymore, or you guys have dissolved that?
They still exist. I don't do anything with them directly, and if anything, I'm kind of more like on a board of directors, I guess you could say, role for that company. And I'll periodically share things back with them that I think will be useful. They still have, I mean, those VAs have been with that company now for almost 4 years, actually 5 years, excuse me. They've been with that company for 5 years. So, for those of you that hire VAs and they don't stay very long, like you really want to look for the VAs who want to grow with the company. And I think they exist. I mean, not think they do exist. You have to have a system to find them. And, you know, I know there's a lot of opportunity out there, and it's scary for VAs, but there are some real rock stars that will move your business forward. And with the right VA, you can really take your business to the next level. Like, it would have been so hard to go from 75 to 156. At that point, we had 7 VAs full time, 4 VAs on operations, 2 maintenance coordinators, and a complete marketing department running our business. And it allowed me to step out of the business within 3 years of me being in there, to actually go do other activities as I'm now doing. And so I will never tell people that VAs are, something that you should sleep on. It should be more of find the right one, know what you need, actually define that. And the right VA and the right position on your team can make all the difference.
Awesome. Well, Cody, thank you, man, so much. I'm sure you dropped so much knowledge for everybody. We'd love to have you back again. Let everybody know where they could find you and get in touch with you if they do need a fractional COO. And with that, I'll let Austin just, let it rip after.
Yeah, you can find us at gettheghosthosts.com is our website, and you can request a free strategy call, no cost. Also, I'll provide later to you, Austin and Matt, a link to where I'm going to do a little intro course for you guys to add back to this podcast later, so they can go through a little training. If they're maybe smaller than 20, I want to give them an opportunity to where they can learn to grow their business with a mail drip for them, so they can kind of keep growing and advancing without having to go out there and chase all the information. So y'all can provide that to them completely free. And when they hit 20, then they can call me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
For sure. Well, we'll get out of here. Thank y'all for listening. Peace.